In this video on Two Healing Minds, we're joined by Shri, a certified grief coach and the founder of Transforming Through Grief. Shri specializes in nervous system informed grief recovery, helping people who feel empty, disconnected, or stuck after loss find their way back to life with love, with peace, and without guilt. After spending a decade as a senior leader at Google, Shri's own experience with profound loss completely transformed her path. Through years of study, professional grief recovery certification, and her signature program, the Grief Breakthrough, she's guided hundreds of people to rebuild their lives, not by forgetting their loved ones, but by learning to carry grief with compassion and meaning. In today's conversation, we'll explore how grief affects the mind and body, what real healing looks like, and how anyone can begin to move forward while honoring those they've lost. Hi, Shri. Thank you so much for joining me on this session of Two Healing Minds. And we're going to be speaking a lot about grief, which is an extremely important conversation to have. And I'm so glad to connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tanya, for having me and for the opportunity to create more conversation around this very important topic of grief. I think it's often not very well addressed in our society. So I love that you're doing this.
Yes, thank you. And yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that one. So first off, I just to get a little background, what inspired you? You created Transforming Through Grief,
Mhm.
and you dedicate your work to helping others heal.
Yeah. So I am very intimately familiar with grief myself. So back in 2019, I lost my dad to a sudden heart attack. So I was visiting home for the holidays. He was there one night and he was gone the next morning. So it was so sudden, and none of us had any warning about it. And while I was still trying to recover from his loss, just 18 short months later, I lost my sister, who was a gynecologist trying to save lives in COVID, and she lost her own in the process. And I was 1 month pregnant with my daughter then, who never got to meet my dad or my sister. And those events kind of shattered all my sense of safety or fairness in the world, right? And at the time, like, my career path was set. I was working for Google. I was a senior leader. I was managing a team of 30 people. I had gone to a top tech school in India. I'd gone to Stanford. I was a first generation immigrant. So I knew how to do hard things. I had done life transitions before, right? But when grief hit, nothing had prepared me for the difficulty of that journey. And everyone kept telling me, give it time, and
Mhm.
time will heal, and it's normal to feel what you're feeling. And while that felt very grounding in the beginning, no one was teaching me how to live inside this pain, because my people weren't coming back, and how to truly find, that joy, that meaning in life again when I was feeling so untethered. And more importantly, like, how do I show up for my daughter now? It's she's she needs me now, not later, right?
Mhm.
So I kept doing the things. I kept going to therapy. I kept journaling, reading the books, everything they tell you is right to do. And I kept showing up for my work, for my newborn, for social events, and I burnt out. I burnt out as a professional. I burnt out as a parent. I burnt out as a human being. And that left me very, very defeated, because I was doing a lot of the things they, tell you to do. And that's when I, took a decision that many thought was crazy at the time. I left my job and I took my healing in my own hands. I started searching for ways to heal from where I was. And in that process, I researched, and I stumbled across nervous system science and nervous system regulation tools. And I started practicing them for myself. And I felt
Mhm.
like, for the first time in a long time, I felt like it was helping. It did wonders for me to calm my spirals, to build my safety a little bit again. But that wasn't the end of the story, right? I went ahead and I got certified in grief recovery by Megan Devine. And I took this nervous system science and this loss of safety and predictability that the brain is struggling with, and I applied it to the layers of grief. And that's when I created the step by step process that is very nervous system informed
Mhm.
to help you address the layers that grief brings, like anxiety, guilt, disconnection, loss of purpose, things like that, right? And for the last 3 years, I've been volunteering at my local hospice, and I've used these tools to help thousands of bereaved. I've been teaching classes, I've been running groups, I've been coaching one on one, and I saw these tools work over and over again. And that's what led me to create Transforming Through Grief and bring like one on one this method, the step by step process that can take that emotional mess of grief and make it something really tangible and safe to work with.
Yeah, I mean, you have an incredible story, and I'm sorry for those tremendous losses of your father and your sister so close together. And yeah, I can relate to the heaviness because I lost my mother to bile duct cancer
Mm,
actually 7 years ago this month, and shortly thereafter, my boyfriend, 2.5 months later, unexpectedly during the holidays. We were planning holidays. So I can understand, and especially when you said the burnout, that is so true with grief.
yeah,
I was burned out also. I was a caregiver for 3 years,
yeah,
and the burnout from that, and
mm,
then the grief, and as like you, continuing working.
yeah,
Because as you
abs-
said, you had to continue your life, you had to keep going,
yeah,
helping others, and not neglecting yourself, but in a way having to kind of still put yourself aside in order to be there for others, like your
yeah,
daughter or anyone else.
yeah,
So that burnout is
abs-
huge, and I can understand that. And it's amazing that you chose this life path to help others. I think it's so important for people to get the support they need because
yeah.
sometimes it's hard to help find support. I remember it was hard for me also.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I do want to say I'm deeply sorry for your losses too. I can imagine how difficult it must have been to navigate that. And to see what you're doing now to bringing, these mental health conversations and grief conversations to so many people, it's pretty incredible.
Yes, absolutely. That's why when you said burnout, I'm just like, yes, I understand. There's a lot of people listening. I'm sure they can relate to the word burnout, and they're
Mhm.
thinking, oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
And a lot, a lot of people, they're told that they're given this expression by people like, oh, just give it time. Like, but for someone who's in deep grief, it can feel like a life sentence. Because I know in the beginning, it's kind of like unimaginable. You're like, how am I going
Yeah.
to get through this? So,
Yeah.
how do you help people move beyond waiting for time? Because sometimes at that moment, it's like, you cannot wait for this time. It
Yeah.
might never come
Yeah.
to
Absolutely.
heal. And instead, how can they be active participants in their healing?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Great question. So, because uh, in grief, you're absolutely right. You're suffering every single day, right? There is this drowning ache you're feeling. There's anxiety, the what if spirals. Your body is exhausted from trying to keep going. And there is just lack of joy, lack of being able to access any joy. And when you're living every day like that, being told to give it time is not comforting, right? It feels like punishment. So, and also what I would like to address about time is time moves very differently in grief, right? Because
Yes.
when your nervous system goes through a loss like that, a part of you stays frozen in time when you
Mhm.
lost a person. Whether it's the room where you saw them take their last breath or the phone call that told you, you stay frozen in that moment. Your spirit stays frozen in that moment while the world keeps moving on. So, physically, even though you move, your part of you stays frozen there. So, time moves very, very differently in grief. And no matter how much time you give it, you have to acknowledge there is a part of you still left there in the room, right? So passage of time in grief can, in fact, I see that with so many people that I work with, induce more guilt and sorrow because you're
Mm-hmm.
moving away from the life that you shared with your person, and you're afraid of forgetting pieces of them, of losing more, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
to your question, what can you do differently? How can you be active participants in your healing? And that's the important part to focus on, because it's not time that heals grief, it's what you do with that time, right? So,
Yes.
it's important to understand what's even happening in
Mm-hmm.
your body when you lose somebody like that. The way our brains work, they try to establish their safety in this world by building a map,
Mm-hmm.
and the map is built through its constant anchors. And these are people, routine, places like your home. And that tells you you can find your way through the world. And
Mm-hmm.
when you lose an anchor like that, and when you go through that profound loss where they were a part of your map, right? It's like you take away an important landmark and your brain loses its way home, right?
Yes.
And for your brain, it's like it's in physical danger at that point, like it's been dropped in the middle of a jungle with no way back.
Mm-hmm.
And it immediately flips into survival mode, right? And in survival mode, there is no room for joy, connection, or peace. It's about survival, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the trick here, though, the catch is that this loss is not something that can be fixed. Because when you are lost in a jungle, your cortisol goes up, you go into action, you try to find
Mm-hmm.
your way, you find your way back home, and then you re regulate back, right? But when you've lost this person and this loss is a permanent loss, they're not coming back. And
Mm-hmm.
that threat, that sense of threat, does not go away on its own. But the good news is that our nervous systems are adaptable. You can
Mm-hmm.
teach your nervous system that in this new reality, you can be safe again. There is a way to build that map, find that safety in your body again, right? And
Yes.
that's the work that I do, where you have to be active participants in your healing in order to teach your nervous system that it's safe again.
Yes, and it's interesting when you were discussing about time and
Mm-hmm.
how time is different. That
Yeah.
is so true. I don't know if other people have experienced this. For me, time was non-existent.
Yeah.
I didn't want to hear about months, years, days. Actually, I didn't even want to know. Unfortunately, for my work, I had to follow a calendar, so that was
Absolutely.
distressing in itself. I'm like, I don't want to know what month it is. And of course, with holidays, I didn't even want to acknowledge holidays. Just basically, I wanted to wipe out time.
Yeah,
That
grief.
was that was very bizarre. Yes, I'm sure with most people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because grief has its own calendar, right? Like it's not
Mhm,
moving at the pace that the world is moving, and it's almost feels like, why is the sun still rising? Why
mhm.
is nobody affected with this loss? So yeah, time moves very differently in grief.
Yes, so that was an interesting point you made because that is so true.
Yeah.
It's a disconnect to the regular time, and also you mentioned of the acceptance because it's hard in the beginning to accept it, even though you know it's your reality. But
Mm,
it's that journey of getting to the point of like, no, this person is not coming back.
mm.
Is not. I mean, you know, you understand it. It's like, okay, whether you have a chance to say goodbye or not to your loved one, but it's still that shock factor
I
of like,
absolutely.
did it really happen?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, was
yeah.
I there, present? You
Yeah,
know?
because you have those pathways built in your brain that lead to this person, right? And now you can't access them anymore. And so there's
Hmm.
a constant layer of shock of what's even happening, what's real, right? Uh, and also, just because you brought up the word acceptance, a lot of times there's also this five stages of grief that people talk about, going from, one emotion to another emotion, and until you reach acceptance and then you're done. I do think like there's more awareness needed around, that grief does not move in stages. It does not go from one emotion to the next, because let's say if you're feeling denial today, right,
Hmm.
that shock that you're talking about, and then you feel uh angry tomorrow, and then you feel a denial again the next day, are you doing grief wrong? So
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
and I,
interesting you said that because I was doing the research and the reading too, and I was looking at these stages. I'm like, no,
no,
I can't relate to this stage, just like what you said.
yeah, and grief
I
is,
was there, I couldn't relate.
yeah, and grief is complex. It's layered. It's messy, right? It does
Hmm.
not, it cannot be packed into neat linear stages that you get through, which is why I wouldn't say like acceptance is that destination that we should or try to reach to. Because to be honest, like what option do we have except acceptance? Like we don't have, nobody asked us if they could take our person away. I do think what is a better way to think about it might be integration that allows you to honor this person in your life while honoring your own like joys and now that are present here and now. So how do you integrate their love into your life more than acceptance is the possibly the healing process.
Oh, good. I love that. I love how you said integration.
Yeah,
Instead of, it seems like there's a finality to acceptance, and there shouldn't be
there shouldn't be
because
because
it's still something in your mind and in your heart, and
yeah.
that's a kind of like a permanent state.
Exactly, exactly.
So
I also
integration.
say even in grief, you can continue to cultivate your relationship with your person, right?
Yes.
Death does not mean end of a relationship. So yeah, I agree. I like that. I like that nuance that you talked about. That acceptance doesn't mean you're done with the relationship. Integration has more of a continuity to it.
I know, and I love that you shared that. That's very useful to people.
Yeah,
And also, people may be carrying a lot of like anxiety or depression alongside grief,
yeah,
whether they had it before the grief state, maybe they were already experiencing going through anxiety, depression, or it can kind of show up alongside it.
yeah.
What gentle steps can they start taking to cope with both? Because that's
Yeah.
really extreme.
Absolutely. Yeah, very good question. So, absolutely, it's very common in grief to experience anxiety and depression because, like you said, if they were mental health conditions that you were already dealing with before the loss, it can absolutely flare up after a
Hmm.
loss and a shock this big to your nervous system. But also, without that, a lot of the way grief manifests does look like you're feeling depressed and you're feeling anxious, so it checks a lot of the same boxes. And when your nervous system is in survival mode, it is very normal to feel on edge or unmotivated or exhausted, right? Very, very similar layers as that. So, what are the gentle steps people can take? First is, I think, naming and normalizing it, right?
Hmm.
Not, I think the fear of depression and the fear of anxiety itself can make this even bigger, where we start feeling like something is wrong with us. But grief is something that every human being is going to go through. So,
Hmm.
normalizing it and telling yourself grief, this isn't a weakness, this isn't a disorder, this is something that this is grief, and I'm built to be able to handle this. I got to take care of myself. That's a healthy way to look at some of those manifestations rather than being scared that or attaching some sort of label to ourselves where we start thinking we can't do this anymore, right? So that's one, the fear aspect of it. So normalizing it is important. The second is just taking gentle steps to slow down, right? Uh, do one thing at a time. Try not to do more than your body is allowing you right now. Give yourself the permission to live softer. It could look like, it could actually look like, what looked like 100% of what you were able to do before loss might actually be your 30% right now.
Hmm.
And that's okay, right? Not being so hard on yourself and wanting to be the most productive self. It's okay to slow down. It's okay to get out in the sunshine for 15 minutes, to go take a walk and let that be enough for the day, or to sort of take in a breath and tell yourself you're okay, you're safe, right? And finally, for if you're struggling a lot with depression, with anxiety, seek support, whether it's with a trusted family or friend or a professional. I think there should be no shame in seeking support in one of the most difficult phases of your life. So Those would be the things that I think everybody should keep in mind if they're struggling. I think a lot of times we put on ourselves to try and be strong and power through, but I think seeking support is not weakness, it's actually wisdom.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. And to kind of soften what you have, whether it's with work or just what you're normally capable of, and slowing down and being okay with it.
Yeah.
And taking maybe if you can. I mean, I know I took 1 month off from work because I had to. I was, as you said, the body's aching, the mind is aching, and after caregiver duties, it's already intense to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm serious. I'm laughing because it's like it's heavy in itself. So giving yourself that space to take time off or to soften what you usually do, your usual schedule, and be okay with it and seek
Be
support.
okay. Don't feel guilty about it. Yeah, that's that, like realizing and normalizing that you're going through something extremely hard. Grief is one of the biggest challenges as human beings we go through. So recognizing that and slowing down, allowing yourself rest and restoration is wise.
Yes, and not pushing yourself, because then pushing yourself, it's actually can backfire.
Yeah.
And yeah, and support is important too.
Yeah.
I remember for the first grief, I went to see a grief psychologist, and something I would never do, but
Mm,
I gave myself that space. And as you said, taking away the shame of like asking for help to go
absolutely.
through the process. And yes, I could be an example of I had to go through that. I had to tell myself, it's okay if you're asking for a grief psychologist to help you. Because
Yeah.
at first I was like, oh no, I shouldn't do that. Oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I love how you share that, like be open to that, being
Yeah.
open to getting the support that you need.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for anyone that's listening, that's not something shameful, even with a group, like a support group, grief group.
Exactly. I think we are living in a time where there are so many avenues available that that I'm grateful that there are places and avenues that people can go to get help. And just like you said, like not feeling any shame about it. In fact, I feel like thinking of it as a privilege, as something you have the option to do, might actually be a better reframe on that, where uh, knowing what you need in this season and going after it and seeking support to feel better actually refuels you to do more for others, to be strong in the long run, right? So giving yourself a little bit of support in the short term is not a bad idea.
Yes, absolutely. And so, how would you suggest, how can someone begin to find courage? I know this is really hard. It's like, how do you find courage after grief and meaning when your life feels shattered by loss?
Yeah.
And I know it's that time thing again, like give yourself space. You might not be able to find that in the beginning, but what do you think?
Yeah, I do think so. First, I love the use of word courage. I think we tell people to be strong, and strong means like be almost stoicism in our society
Ah,
right now, where you shouldn't feel, right? But I
yes.
love that you use the word courage, right? And courage and meaning, when we're looking for it while we're in the depths of grief, it doesn't show up all at once, like you said, right?
Mhm.
But what is brave when you're in the depth of grief is to allow yourself to feel, is to allow yourself to slow down. That's brave. That requires courage, right? In a society, especially that's obsessed with productivity, with hustle
Oh,
culture, right? With getting things done.
ah.
It's
I'm like,
brave.
ah.
Yeah. It's brave, it's courageous to choose to slow down, right? It's courageous to choose to feel your love, to feel your pain, something that, again, society is saying stay strong, but it's almost defiant and courageous to actually allow yourself that space, right? And also, it's courageous, again, as we were touching on it, to seek support. It's not weak, it's actually courageous if you think about the narratives in society where even, getting a pedicure is seen as luxury.
Mhm.
Investing in yourself, in getting support in a season that is one of the most difficult seasons of your life, it's actually courage, right?
Oh my
uh,
God, I love that. That's
absolutely. And then I think the meaning that we talk about, right? The meaning and the purpose, it can feel very out of reach in the depths of grief. But what I would say is that even then, meaning does not mean when you're navigating grief and you're finding it hard to go, day by day. It does not come in big life missions in the beginning.
Mhm.
It comes in the day to day, in like planting a tree in honor of your loved one, in sharing a memory, writing it down, passing it to your friends and family, or lighting a candle in their memory, or showing up for someone else, right? That can be meaning in the beginning. So we don't have to chase for the moonshots and changing the world all the time. Meaning and courage show up in very, very, you know, deep ways if you look for it in the very beginning.
Oh my God, I love how you shared all this information, especially where you don't have to always feel like you're on.
Hmm.
You're productive, you're doing things, you're shining. And it's like, no, this is the moment that you can slow down. I think I had some quote as it's healthy, or when you're depressed or in grief, it's okay to be not productive,
Yeah.
because there's always that emphasis on accomplishment or productivity. And it's like, why can't it be the opposite when your body and your mind needs that rest?
Yeah. And in fact, like it can end up stressing your nervous system even more. So it's not
Mhm.
even wise to do that.
Yes, and that's how and also something else you mentioned, because I hate this.
Mhm.
I've shared this too. It's like, stop telling people like, oh, you just have to be strong, and that almost like devalues what somebody's going through,
Yeah.
and then they're making it feel more ashamed. Like, what's wrong with me being
Yeah.
a little bit? It's sad. What does that have to do with not being strong? I mean, that's never any good advice. Like, just be strong when you're going through the normal process of
Yeah.
grief.
Yeah, exactly. And I think choosing to love in a world that is impermanent is strong. What do you need? What more proof do you need of my strength other than I choose to love in a world where there are no guarantees? So I
Yes.
don't think there is any other performance needed as a proof of strength. When grief, the fact that you're grieving is already an act of courage.
Oh, absolutely. Because I can already think of two people telling me that, and I'm like, strong?
Oh,
Like, excuse me? Like, give me some time here? Like, that's not a good word to
I
use
know.
right now.
I know. I'd say you're lucky if there were only two.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So you probably got many, right?
Gosh, so many people where and everybody that I work with, right? I have never met a griever who hasn't felt in some way minimized or dismissed in their grief. So, which is sad, which is a sad state of grief awareness in the society.
Yes, and that's why we're having this conversation. It's so important,
Mm.
whatever, however somebody wants to get the message across to people. And having interviews with you is important. I mean, I would
Absolutely.
have loved to have this information too.
Yeah.
And so now, since you talk a lot about nervous system healing,
Hmm.
and there's like practices, I'm sure there's numerous practices like mindfulness. What other practices can people use when they're navigating grief day to day?
Yeah. So, as you said, right, there are thousands of nervous system tools out there, and it's never one size fits all. It's always, what nervous system state you're in, what tools do you respond the best to. But uh, what I would say is that, why it's important to tend to your nervous system in the first place is it allows you to feel your grief while tending to life without needing to numb it or to suppress it, right? Because if you have the tools to tend to your nervous system, if you have, so that you can go dip your toes in your feelings and you know that you won't be drowned in them. You have the tools to come back into your body, to regulate yourself, and then tend to life, and then go back to grief, which is the balance we need in life, which is the first step towards integration, where we are comfortable feeling our grief and feeling our joys, right? And that's the part where nervous system can give you a lot of agency in your grief journey, when you know how to work with your nervous system, not against it, right? And the second part also, like you said, mindfulness, and I love it because mindfulness basically talks about being present in your body, being aware of
Mhm.
your surroundings, being there mindfully, right? And that can be a hugely restorative thing in grief. Grief is so draining.
Mhm.
Allowing yourself to be mindful, to be present where you are, to allow yourself to take in the beauty and the awe around you all the time, that can give you a break from the despair, from the grief, and be restorative. It can give you some happy hormones that allows you to do the hard work of grief, right? So it's
Mhm.
not like it's not either or. It actually helps you to grieve if you let some of the mindfulness and joy and restorative practices in. And if I were to share, tools for nervous system, as you asked, like the best one that we have is nature,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Giving
Uh-huh.
yourself, even if you don't have any deeper tools in nervous system, getting out in nature, giving yourself 15 minutes of sunshine, letting breeze in, watching, looking at the trees. Like there's this one where you go from your left to your right, and you're
Mhm.
looking at every little detail that is on the way from your as you move your head from left to right. That grounds you physically into where you are, that helps you get from your head into your body, right? So that is
Yes.
very simple. Breath is again another beautiful tool that we have, and there are thousands of nervous system tools around breath, around the five senses, around even the deeper processing tools that are based around nervous system, which I don't think we have enough time even to go
Yeah.
through. But those are the kind of things we are built in our bodies to be able to give our bodies signals that we are safe. So working with that can be really, really powerful.
Yeah, I did like the fact that you described nature. I mean, just to get out in the fresh air, under sunshine, by trees, and preferably someplace quiet. Because I
Yeah.
remember I would take nature walks
Yeah.
and letting people know, yes, your body's going to feel different when you're walking. It's going to feel like you have this extra weight. So you're
Mm.
not going to be walking like you normally do, but it's
Right.
still good for you, even though it's just going to be like the emptiness and the heaviness,
Yeah.
but you still need to allow the body to move because
Yeah.
it will get stiff and
Yeah.
then you would get the soreness
Yeah.
sometimes comes with the body.
And I would say even if you can't get yourself to take a walk, right? There's a lot of
Yeah.
days when people find it hard to even get out of the bed,
Oh,
right?
yes.
So I think even gently waking your muscles at a time like that, and there are various practices you can do that, even that alone can be great for your nervous system, where you're basically trying to train the muscles of your body to gentle move, gently sway, and things like that. Even if you can't, don't have the energy to walk, any kind of gentle movements also can be amazing for your body.
Yes. And because also many people can go through numbness. And
Mm,
what you suggest is being able to feel your body again.
yeah,
This might be in the early stages where you just don't feel anything. Your
yeah,
body is numb. You're like thinking, "Oh my God, is my arm moving? Or am I
yeah,
moving?"
yeah,
Like sometimes you have this feeling of like, again, this it could be in the early stages. You're walking and you're thinking, "Is it me walking?"
yeah.
You're kind of out of your body in a way.
Absolutely. Even much later in grief, if this happens, it can happen in any grief wave. Any
Hmm.
trigger could put you in a kind of dysregulated nervous system state. And once you learn those tools, once you learn to work with your body, you can always go back to those tools no matter what stage you're in.
Yes, and this is something that you've shared. You've said that you can not just forget or let go or move on from someone who has been a piece of your heart and your home.
Yeah.
That's not how healing works. When you love someone so deeply, the grief stays forever and it changes you in some permanent ways. And that was very like touching statement you've made.
Yeah.
And if somebody feels like stuck, I know a lot of people experience being stuck in their grief.
Yeah.
What is one small thing they can do to move forward?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people, when they're saying they feel stuck in grief, right? There are two components to grief, and I talked about this earlier in one of the other talks. There are two different components to grief, right? One are parts of grief that you don't really want to let go of, and this includes the love and the longing for your loved one. It includes the lessons that they taught you. It includes missing them and all your milestones now, and those aren't the parts of grief that you really want to go away, right? But when people are saying they're stuck in grief, they feel stuck in the suffering, which is the second
Mhm.
component of grief, which is the guilt, the disconnection, the loneliness, the inability to feel joy again, right? Those are the parts that are stuck. And much of that suffering, which is why I like to separate the two, is much of that suffering in grief is actually your nervous system's response to the event of loss. Like I was talking about it being stuck in survival mode right now,
Mhm.
and that is at the root of a lot of that suffering. So when someone is feeling stuck in their grief, I think one gentle thing to think about is that grief is not the enemy. Grief is here because love was here first, right?
Mhm.
But the suffering, there's absolutely a way to address that suffering, right? And that is by finding that safety again. And one gentle step you can do is to seek support, whether it's through with a professional or a trusted friend or a group where you can find connection again, you can find regulation tools for yourself, and you can work with your nervous system to build the capacity to be able to hold the pain and joy together at the same time, right? And that's
Mhm.
what you can do to start feeling unstuck. That would be my gentle step. I think, again, humans are built for connection, right?
Mhm.
We were not made to do grief alone, but somehow in the modern day society, the isolation has led us to want to even do everything alone. But there is so much that we can heal through connection, through reaching out to people who've been there before or who have tools that can help you to regulate yourself. So I would say you don't have to do it alone, just reach out.
Yes, and I like the point that you made, holding the joy and pain together.
Yeah.
Is it like, okay, the pain that you're experiencing now with the grief, and is it the joy, perhaps maybe of the experiences you had with the person, or
Yes, yeah,
is
you're
that what you mean, or just so you're present, if you
yeah.
can find the joy?
I think both, right? So
Uh-huh.
first, like being able to hold the pain in the sense that yes, it would you would always long for them, right? Uh, I think we have a new diagnosis now that says if you're longing more than 6 or 12 months in grief, you have some kind of disorder. They call it
Mhm.
prolonged grief disorder. I will always long for my loved ones, right?
Mhm.
So I do think like there is some ache that comes with grief of not having them physically here, but the joy is about being able to cultivate that relationship with them, like we talked about after grief as well, after the loss as well, where we're able to honor all of who they were and carry them with us, but also the joys of today, right? The relationships that we have around us today, the joys that we can cultivate in our life today with the life and time that we have on earth, and not feel like we're betraying their memory, but do it in a way that we integrate their love with us.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I love that point you made. Integrate their love with us, carrying them with you in your current life.
Yeah, in your current joys, in everything you do now.
Yes, that's that's a very nice way to put it. And also, what are some simple, like powerful ways like friends and family can truly show up for a grieving loved one? And I mean, this is not to take away, because I've experienced too that there are people that aren't very supportive.
Right.
So I've experienced that. And I'm not talking about the ones that are absent or
Yeah,
truly don't want to help, but the ones that they do.
yeah, yeah. And I think it is a very good question also because even when you are very well meaning and when you want the best for this person and you want to support them, it's very hard. It's very hard as somebody supporting a grieving person to know, and our culture doesn't do a very good job of teaching anybody anyway,
Mhm.
but what is the right thing to say or to do, right? To help them. And even as a griever, you don't know what you want a lot of the times. Like this is not a fixable, solvable problem.
Mhm.
So I think the best thing that you could do as a family or friend who wants to be there for a grieving friend, I read this in a book and I really love this. I've never come across anything better than this. Is like you have a cast around a broken arm, right? You trust the bone to heal itself,
Mhm.
but you have a cast around it, right? That keeps it steady, that keeps it anchored. Be that cast around their broken soul and show up. Don't be afraid of being uncomfortable, because no matter how uncomfortable you are with their grief, with their pain, trust me, they're going through a lot more
Yes.
than your discomfort right now. So being there for them, not handing them the platitudes and cliches, but wanting to be genuinely there for them, show up in specific ways, help them in specific ways, like ask them, do you need your lawn mowed? Do you want me to pick up the mail? Do you want me to bring over some food today? Right? They might not know what they want. So just giving them some specific ways that you can show up. And don't be afraid of saying the wrong thing. I think a lot of times we all say the wrong things. Uh,
Mhm.
Sometimes, even as a griever, one day I've been wanting to talk about my loved ones, maybe another day I'm too scared. I want to keep it together today, so I don't want their name brought up or something. You never know, what your friend might be needing in that moment. But showing up is important. Consistently showing up, and your intention and your presence can speak way louder than any words can. A hug goes a longer way than any words could. So just showing up consistently, reliably, being around like a life raft that they can hang on to when they need to, and
Mhm.
trusting them to figure out their journey, and, being there, just being there for them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so important. And on the other end, if people have problems with this, and I know they do, because I know I did, the people that choose not to acknowledge
Yeah.
or not to help or to be indifferent, dismissive, you have to, I know you don't like this word, accept that. Accept that in their character, because there might be one or two of those people, and you might be upset and thinking, oh, why or what happened.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So now we are
that's
flipping the.
not your energy to use. Your
Yeah,
energy should be for yourself to heal.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where we flip the question. Right now the question is not to the supporters. We are saying, as grievers, how can you navigate when people will say the wrong things, or might just downright be dismissive and triggering to
Mhm.
your grief? I think that is where gentle but firm boundaries are very important. I think managing your energy right now, consider it sacred, right? You're in your healing space, you don't want more triggers, you don't want to feel worse than you already do, right? So find out who your safe connections are, and if something doesn't feel safe, you don't have to continue to expose yourself just in the name of being kind, but just direct that kindness towards yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And another quote that I love that you have shared is that it says, trying to fix or numb the pain instead of befriending it is not beneficial. This might look like you're chasing fixes, like a pill for anxiety,
Yeah,
another one for depression, a glass of wine every day for sleep, without ever addressing the root cause, which lies in your nervous system.
yeah,
So, as you've said, I think you've mentioned this, that grief isn't a problem to solve. It's an
yeah,
experience to integrate. The more you fight it, the more it fights back. So that is so true.
yeah,
Like you don't want to repress it because it will come back.
yeah,
So I hate to say haunt you, whether it's 2 years from now, three, 4 or 5, you're going to be like, God, I really didn't go through that
yeah,
grief.
yeah, yeah. And like I say, grief is a living entity almost with you in the room at all times, right? And you might choose not to look in its direction as long as you can, but grief is not going anywhere. It is here to stay, right? So befriending it and talking to it and understanding it, trying to understand how it can become your life force and not be the, this entity that you don't really like, but it's going to stay there anyway, right? That's important. It's important to not suppress and numb the whole time. Of course, some amount of distraction and taking a break from grief is healthy, but you do not want to, suppress it forever. Like, you have to find the time to just do the work of grief.
I mean, have you worked with people like that, that perhaps maybe it was like a short-term grief or they just kind of dismissed it, they went along, and then years later, all of a
Yeah,
sudden it hit them and they thought, God, I really didn't grieve
yeah,
whoever it was.
yeah. We've had people show up, even 9 years after their losses, saying, it's hitting me this year in a very, very big way. I've not really tended to my grief. I didn't slow down. And not to say, like, I'm not saying this to blame them in any way. Like, grief is hard no matter what, right?
Hmm.
Uh, they did what they had the capacity to do in the moment. And our culture, which is productivity obsessed, as I was talking about, doesn't help, right? Everybody wants to be functional, be out there doing things. Uh, but yeah, I've had people who've spent years and then later, do find grief still in the room and wanting to be noticed. And I also hear, I share some of these on my Instagram channel as well, where even celebrities have come out. Like, people like Anderson Cooper have done so much to address the grief culture, where they were like, I was running away from grief all my life. And he says years, 20 years or so, 15 years, 20 years that he spent after the loss of his dad. And he says, I didn't get too far. I kept running, but I didn't get too far.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I have heard that people, even though I haven't experienced it, but I know many people have experienced it. And if you can suggest any tools or practices to help people to
Yeah.
build resilience, I hope people don't dislike that word resilience, because I know I was afraid of it in the beginning. So there might be other people like that. They're
Yeah.
thinking resilient, or they can't relate to that word. They're
Yeah.
like, I'm not resilient, and
Yeah.
slowly discover joy during grief.
So I think you mentioned an amazing one, which is mindfulness, right? Being
Mhm.
out there in nature, allowing yourself to not, like, there's a huge component where moving forward in life comes with a lot of guilt in grief. So allowing yourself to work through those feelings of guilt and letting your joy be there, not considering joy as this betrayal to your love, right? Both joy and grief can coexist, and understanding that will be hugely important in even rediscovering any kind of joy in grief. And I think more than tools, and tools will come later, but I think the biggest tool that anybody can have is self compassion. You will need a lot of self compassion on this journey. And a lot of us are very comfortable in giving that kindness and love to others, but not
Mhm.
so much to ourselves. But using self compassion as a tool, which is why bring it up as a tool, you're doing it. Be strategic about it, be defiant about it, that you're directing that self compassion towards yourself, and let it show up in all of those layers we talked about, where you're slowing down, where you're allowing yourself to feel joy, and you're allowing yourself to seek support. You're allowing yourself to seek safety in your nervous system again. All of this will require big, big doses of self compassion.
Yeah, and if you don't mind me asking about when you had your personal grief journey,
Yeah.
was there anything in particular that you can reflect on that helped you and that you're implementing in your practice today? That may be something you did.
Something I did. Absolutely. I think building more capacity to sit with grief is
Hmm.
something that I did in my journey, whether it's through journaling or it's through talking to somebody that's safe. That is something that is a huge part of the grief journey. But also being able, what I didn't do in my journey, which is also a lot of the learnings that I've carried through, right, is doing it in a way that, the grief doesn't drown you, where it's a lot of times when we are throwing ourselves into distraction or suppression, it's because we are not equipped to deal with those difficult feelings and then come back to regulation again. And
Hmm.
so, like, that has been a big learning, which I use in my practice all the time. The other things were more about like understanding how, in my own grief journey, I understood how ill equipped the society was in understanding grief or helping you with
Mhm.
it. The platitudes and cliches that people throw at you, which is almost like a knee jerk reaction from people now. And they're so unhelpful in grief.
Oh, yes, I agree.
Everything happens for a reason,
Oh,
and things like that. It's like, I understood how ill-equipped the society was, and
yes.
also the whole toxic narrative around moving on and letting go
Oh my
of your
gosh.
loved one. Like,
You are so correct. I
yeah,
can totally relate to you. Some of the people that I interacted with, and I agree. And I was like thinking, God, are they so foolish? Like, do they not know any better? But
ex-
ill-equipped is the better way to explain it. It's not like, do
ex-
you like have manners? Like that
yeah,
was a rude, like, oh, they're at a better place. And I'm thinking, my gosh, like why?
yeah,
Yes, so
no.
I agree with you.
So, and those toxic narratives, and that's the part that I carried with me to the way I work now with grievers. Is for me, it's very, very important that they understand that healing can only happen if you work to keep towards keeping that bond alive with your loved one, right? There is no moving on or letting go that's going to
No,
happen from the person that has been your home, that has been your anchor, has been a
no,
piece of your heart, right? So even like aiming for having people aim for things like try to move on and try to let go, I think does more damage
it
than
does.
than
Oh my gosh, it does.
I always say I like to use your heart as the compass to move your loss into life, right? So it always has to be around honoring them and keeping that connection alive. That is a big part of the work that I do. And also I think what I understood, and which is again a big part of what why of how I work through grief with people, is our medical systems are designed to be experts at either the nose or the ears or the
Mhm.
eyes, or and while it works great because it makes these specialists really efficient at one part of your body, grief is a full mind, body, and spirit experience when you go through
Absolutely.
a loss like that. So understanding that the medical systems, the way they're designed, while they're amazing for your physical ailments, uh, they are not as effective for grief, right? So understanding that even the medical systems are not equipped to deal with the depth of grief that and this very human experience that you're going through, because they are not equipped to deal with the human being as a whole, right? So I like to make sure that people understand that here your entire being, all your dimensions are involved in the process of grieving, and honoring that in in the journey of healing is important.
Yeah, and I like how you not only help people who are grieving, you're educating the ones that are supporting them
Yeah.
to be a little more compassionate, show empathy. And as you said, it's just because they don't have the knowledge,
Yeah.
and maybe the wrong words come out, and they really don't know how to help or be of a good support or be polite during somebody's hard time.
Absolutely.
And I mean, that's really good. And also in your personal experience, can you think of something like when you went through your grief journey of losing your father and your sister, at what point did you decide that, hey, I want to change my life course? And because you said you quit your job
Hmm.
at
Yeah.
Google, that you had that aha moment and said, you know what, this my life journey is going to change because of these events and your bonds with them. It's almost like you're doing something for them too. This
Yeah.
is in memory of them,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
respect for them, saying, I'm going to carry that with you by helping other people.
Yeah. Um, I wouldn't say there was one aha moment
Uh-huh.
that led me to this at all. I think when I left my job, I was looking for my own healing, to be honest, as I said, right? I was like, I got to take this in my own hands
Yeah.
because there. there was very little of, awareness, like, people like you or me are doing now. There was very little of that then. And
Oh, yeah.
as I was looking for my own healing and I was coming across this, it almost saddened me to feel, when I was able to find joy, relief, peace in some significant ways, then I was like, I couldn't look the other way. That was more of like, anything else did for me wasn't as meaningful anymore, than letting people know, after having navigated that darkness, that rock bottom myself, wanting to help others who are navigating that rock bottom was important, very centrally important to my life almost. And I also, this is not part of, I would even say, just in their honor. Like, if it is something for me more than them, right?
Mhm.
Which is why I'm able to do it for uh, as long as I have, because it is definitely integrated with a lot of their love. I feel very close to them doing this work
Mhm.
because I'm helping somebody with their loss, and they are the reason, like, I even got here. But I almost always say, like, no reason is good enough to inflict this much suffering on anybody. So I feel like, would I have them back in a minute? Yes, in a heartbeat I would have them back, right? But life dealt me the cards that it dealt, and it led me to a path that it did. And once I started seeing that those people in those dark places, when I was working in this hospice and helping the bereaved people, were able to find that light again, it felt very rewarding, and it felt like I had found my place again. So that's what led me to just doing this. And yes, it every day I do it, I feel very close to my dad and sister. But um it's something I'm doing absolutely for me too, because this is the only way I feel good in the world now, by
Mhm.
doing this work.
And I find it is incredible. We need more people like you, of course. I feel
Oh,
like
thank
you're more relatable because even when I was going through my journey of grief and anxiety, severe depression, I mean, I went through a lot, a lot
yeah.
of back. I always told myself it's best to find whether it's a therapist, a coach, someone to help you that's relatable. I was
Right.
telling that to myself, and you're
Yeah.
relatable to
Yeah.
people that are navigating grief, as opposed to someone that's like, hey, I didn't experience it deeply, or I have not experienced it at all. Because I
Yeah.
always would, because I always like say is like, it's better to get help from someone that can understand. Maybe they've gone through what you have. And I think they will be a little bit better to support you because they
Yeah,
can
because
relate.
they've sat in those same what if spirals, right? And they've
Yes.
sat in that darkness themselves, when for me I thought, there was no way out of where I am. And to be there and then to bear that hope for other people when they are sitting in that darkness, that's powerful, because you tell them that there is a way out, right?
Hmm.
So I think, yeah, that is why I find this so meaningful, that being able to lead people to that light, that brings me a lot of joy.
Okay, good. And I'm glad that you're doing it. And as I said, we need more people like you
uh,
and that have been through the journey, who get it, and who can support others.
yeah.
I guess as opposed to somebody that's just reading the books, the literature and helping, but they really haven't gone through it. That could be with anything, being relatable.
Yes, grief is one of those experiences that you have to go through to understand, right? I think that these are some very human experiences that no amount of reading books can teach you.
Yes.
Where, I think motherhood is a very similar experience. Parenthood, like, you have to go through certain experiences to know what it even feels like. So I think I completely agree with you that having that understanding makes me very, very aware of where they are, because I know it in deep in my bones what they're going through.
Yes. And just for the last question, I mean, you've offered such wealth of information. And if you can leave our viewers just with one last message of hope or encouragement, what would it be?
um This is a tough one. One message of hope and encouragement, but the need is so much in grief, right? But if I had to say one, it would be you have everything it takes to heal in grief. As a human being who is born to love in an impermanent world, that is, for whatever reason, whatever you believe in, that is somehow the design of our universe, where we are born to love as human beings and we are born to lose because there is this impermanence in the world for some reason. And you have everything as a human being that it takes to heal from this, right? And that alone should give you the certainty that no matter where you are in your journey or how dark it feels, you can make it through, right? Humans are made for connection. Reach out for support. You don't have to do this alone, right? And finally, I would also say a very common theme in grief is healing does not mean letting go or moving on. It
Mm-mm.
means honoring the joys of today with while honoring the ache and the longing and the love in your heart, and you are capable as a human being of holding both of those realities at the same time. So allow yourself to heal. Yeah.
That is like such a heartfelt message. And yes, people out there, please don't tell people because that's happened to me too. I can't remember the person, but it was early on. Moving on. Yeah, that's that. It's like don't tell the people, especially like after 1 month or even 1 week or any time when the sensitivity is on, you're like thinking, okay. What is that supposed to mean?
All
Yeah.
you can do is move forward while
Yes.
holding that reality close to you. You cannot move on. Like, what does it even mean to move on?
Yes, and again, I appreciate the wealth of knowledge you have and empathy. That's very important when you have these programs. A lot of empathy, and I can hear it in your voice, in your heart. You're very connected to this, and I am so glad that I actually connected to you and you said yes for this interview. And I want to
Yeah.
say, make sure I say thank you. I thank you, Shri, for saying yes. And if you can please share your website, I'll include it in the description too.
Yeah, of course. So my website is www.transformingthroughgrief.com. And that's also my Instagram handle at transforming.through.grief, where I share a lot of information on grief, on nervous system, and everything healing for people who are supporting grievers, everything grief, right?
Yes, I mean, she has like a lot of information. And again, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Tanya. Thank you so much for creating this space and for creating, this movement for these conversations to happen. I think it is so, so important that, you know, people who are in the depth of that grief or that mental health struggle that they may be in, for them to find that hope and light. And I'm sure like your platform is going to provide that to so many people.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.